Rain poured from the sky like endless tears. The wind howled through the broken trees and across the red plains of the outer colony world of Varelia. Lightning flashed in the distance. The storm had arrived faster than anyone expected. It was no ordinary storm. It was the Tempest, a deadly weather event known across the sector. It tore through buildings, lifted vehicles, and swallowed entire villages in its fury. Alira ran. She was no human. Her skin was light blue and shimmered in the rain. Her long white hair stuck to her face. She wore a torn cloak and her feet were bleeding from running on sharp rocks and broken ground. The ground shook behind her as the storm chased her. The sky turned green as more lightning ripped it open. She had never been so afraid. The Tempest had hit her village without warning. Her people screamed. Some tried to fight the wind with machines. Others prayed. Nothing helped. The sky took them all. Alira had grabbed what she could and ran toward the hills, but there was nowhere to hide. She tripped and fell into the mud. Her hands sank into the wet earth. For a moment, she couldn't move. She wanted to give up. The wind screamed in her ears. Her eyes closed. Then she heard something strange. A loud crack. A sharp, powerful sound. Not thunder, it came again. Another crack, like metal clashing or energy breaking the air. Alira looked up through the rain. She saw a shape, tall, solid. It did not run from the storm. It stood still. She blinked. A human. He stood on a rock at the edge of a narrow valley. His hair was short and wet. His face was covered in stubble and mud. He wore armor that looked old but strong. In his hands was a weapon, long and sharp, glowing with light. She did not know what kind of weapon it was, but it pulsed with energy. He grinned. Alira stared. Was he mad? Why would a human be smiling during the Tempest? He didn't run. He didn't scream. He stood tall, his eyes calm, his stance wide. Then he shouted something, but the wind carried his words away. He pointed toward her and waved. Alira was frozen. Her mind screamed, "Run!" but her body did not move. Then the human ran toward her. Not away from the storm, toward her. He reached her in moments, lifted her up like she was weightless, and carried her into a nearby crack in the rocks. She could feel the power in his arms, but his touch was gentle. Inside the rocky gap was a small tunnel, not much, but enough to block the wind. The human dropped to one knee and set her down. Then he reached into a pack and pulled out a grey blanket. He wrapped it around her and handed her a small round device. It warmed in her hands. She was shaking, not just from cold, but from shock. The storm raged outside. The world roared, but in the small space, it was almost calm. The human sat across from her. His face was serious now. He spoke slowly, using basic trade language. "You hurt?" he asked. She nodded. He pointed to himself. "Name's Jack." Alira stared at him. Her voice cracked. "Alira." Jack nodded and looked outside for a moment. Then he spoke again. "Storm will pass. We're safe here." Alira looked at him. Closely, his armor had dents. His weapon hummed. He looked like a fighter, not a settler. "Why are you here?" she asked. Jack smiled just a little. "Looking for trouble, I guess." She didn't understand. No sane person looked for trouble on a world like this, especially during the storm season. He leaned his head back against the rock wall and closed his eyes. "Heard there were survivors out here. Guess I found one." Alira felt her chest tighten. She had lost everything, her people, her village. Now, a human she had never met sat across from her, calm as ever, acting like none of it was strange. "Why help me?" she asked. Jack opened his eyes. They were green and sharp. "You needed help. That's enough for me." Alira didn't know what to say. She had heard stories of humans. Some were kind, some were cruel, but all were strange and wild. She had never met one face to face before. Now she was sitting in a cave with one, hiding. From the deadliest storm in this part of the galaxy, the wind screamed again, louder this time. The rocks shook. Jack stood and checked the entrance, his weapon ready. He was like a wall between her and the chaos outside. Alira felt something strange inside her. Not fear, not confusion, hope. Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe humans were something else. We can move now, he said. Alira tried to stand. Her legs shook, but she nodded. Luke offered his arm, and she took it. They walked together through the broken land, heading for higher ground. They came to a small hill with a metal hatch, hidden by rocks. Luke pushed a code into a keypad, and the hatch opened. Inside was a narrow stair that led down. Alira followed him. The shelter was simple. Metal walls, old tech, a long table, 2 chairs, and a small cooking unit. There were maps and tools. On the walls, a bed in the corner. "This is your home?" Alira asked. Luke nodded. For now, she sat down slowly. Her body ached. Luke handed her a warm drink from a silver cup. It tasted strange but good. He gave her a clean shirt and soft boots. She changed in silence. When she sat back down, Luke was at the table, working on a piece of metal. Sparks flew as he used a tool to fix it. "You are a soldier?" she asked. Luke didn't look up. "Was. Earth Marine Corps, got stranded here. During a supply run, ship crashed. No way to call for help. You survived alone." "Yeah, learned fast. Took parts from wrecks. Built what I needed. This place is dangerous, but I like a challenge." Alira watched him. He moved with focus and care. His hands were rough but skilled. He was not like the Car-3 soldiers she knew. They were proud, loud, always trying to prove something. Luke was quiet, strong without showing off. "You helped me," she said. "But you don't even know me." Luke finally looked at her. "Didn't need to. You were in trouble." She didn't know what to say. Her people would never risk their lives for a stranger, but Luke had. He stood and opened a storage unit. He took out a small packet and started cooking. Soon the room smelled like food. "Eat," he said, "then rest." They ate in silence. Alira watched him closely. He moved like a man who had seen too much, yet he smiled. Not often, but when he did, it was real. After the meal, Luke showed her the bed. "You sleep first. I'll take watch," he said. Alira lay down. The bed was soft, warmer than anything she had felt in weeks. As she closed her eyes, she whispered, "Thank you, Luke." He said nothing, but she heard him sit down and check his weapon again. She slept when she woke. The storm was gone. Luke gave her a new set of boots and a small pack. "You planning to stay?" he asked. Alira looked at the door. She could try to leave, try to hide again. But where would she go? "I don't know," she said. Luke looked at her. His face was calm. "You can stay, for now, help out. I won't stop you if you want to go later." She nodded. Over the next days, she helped him repair tools, clean weapons, and check the power lines. She was surprised how fast she learned. Luke was a good teacher. He was patient and clear. He never raised his voice. She told him about her people, the Carthari, and why she ran. He listened without judging. He told her about Earth, about oceans and forests, and cities in the clouds. They were from two different worlds, but somehow they worked well together. One night they sat outside, watching the stars, the storm. "We'll come back," she said. Luke nodded. "It always does. But now I'm not alone." Luke smiled, just a little. "Neither am I." The wind was quiet. The sky was clear. For the first time in a long while, Alira felt peace, not just safe, home. Alira woke early. The air was cool and still. She walked outside the shelter and looked at the hills. The land was quiet now, but broken in places. Pieces of ships and machines were scattered across the valley. Luke joined her with a cup of warm drink in his hand. He looked around, then pointed to the east. "There's an old relay tower that way. I want to fix it. If we get it working, maybe we can hear what's out there. Could be others nearby." Alira nodded. "I'll help." They packed supplies and walked toward the tower. The land was rough, but Luke knew the path. Along the way, he showed her how to spot traps and how to check for safe ground. He moved carefully, always watching, always calm. When they reached the tower, it was half buried in rock and dirt. The wind had torn off the top. Cables were loose and broken. Luke examined it. "Not hopeless. Give me an hour." They worked together. Alira held lights, while Luke opened panels and fixed wires. She passed him tools and cleaned parts. It was hard work, but she liked it. She liked watching him focus. After some time, a soft light came on. The screen blinked. Luke smiled. "It's alive." They listened. The signal was weak, but they heard voices. Not close, but real. "People out there," Luke said. "Survivors, maybe. Or travelers." Alira felt something. Inside her shift, she was not the only one who ran from the Empire. Maybe there were others like her. They marked the signals and returned to the shelter. That night, Luke sat at the table, cleaning his weapon. Alira sat across from him. "You were not surprised to find me," she said. Luke shook his head. "Knew someone would come through. This world draws people who have nowhere else to go." She thought about that. Maybe that was why she found him, or why he found her. The next day, they started building more traps around the hill. Luke said it was better to be ready. Alira helped, learning fast. She set lines and dug holes. She felt strong again. Later, while they worked, they heard a sound in the distance. A low hum, not from nature. Luke stood still, a flyer. Not one of ours. They watched the sky. A dark shape passed overhead, fast and silent. It vanished behind a ridge. "Carthari?" Alira asked. "Maybe," Luke said. "We'll find out." Soon, that night, Alira couldn't sleep. She stood outside, watching the stars again. Luke joined her. "If they come, we'll fight," he said. She nodded. "I'm not afraid." He looked at her. "Good, because I think they'll come. Looking for you." She looked back at him. "Let them come. They came at dawn." The sky was red, and the air was heavy. Alira woke first and heard the sound of machines. She ran to the edge of the hill and saw them. 3 black flyers hovered above the valley. Soldiers dropped down in armor, marked with Carthari signs. They carried energy weapons and moved fast. Luke joined her, weapon in hand. Showtime, he said with a grin. They moved quickly. Luke activated the traps they had set. The first soldier stepped on a pressure plate, and an explosion sent him flying. Alira aimed one of the launchers and hit a second team near the rocks. Smoke filled the air. The hill shook. Alira and Luke fought side by side. She moved like she had trained all her life, and Luke covered her with perfect timing. The Carth sent drones next, small flying machines with lasers. Luke pulled out a signal jammer and turned it on. The drones fell like stones. They pushed forward, but Alira stood in their path. Her hands were dirty, her eyes full of fire. One commander shouted her name. "You are a traitor to your people," he yelled. Alira raised her voice. "I saved innocent lives. I have no shame." He fired. Luke blocked the shot with a shield, plate, and returned fire. The Carthri fell back. One flyer tried to escape. Luke picked up his railgun, aimed, and fired. The shot hit the engine, and the ship exploded in the sky. Silence fell. Alira breathed hard. Her heart pounded, but they had one. Luke stood beside her, clothes torn, bleeding, but smiling. "You good?" he asked. She nodded. "I am now." The next day was quiet. Birds returned to the sky. The wind carried the smell of smoke, but also peace. Alira and Luke stood on the hilltop. The battlefield was empty now, with only broken weapons and fallen armor scattered below. Alira helped Luke bury the enemy dead. He didn't speak much, but he worked with respect. She said a short prayer for the lost ones. Even enemies deserved rest. Later, they sat in the shelter. Luke patched up his wounds. Alira cleaned the launchers and checked their supply crates. "We need to be ready," Luke said. "For more Cathari?" Alira asked. Luke nodded. "That was just a scout team. If they don't report back, more will come." "We can't stay here forever," Alira said. Luke looked at the map on the wall. "There's a mountain base, old Earth tech. If we can get there, we'll have better defenses and maybe a long-range transmitter. It's far, a week. On foot, maybe more." She nodded. "Let's go." They packed light. Food, weapons, tools, maps. Alira took a small device Luke gave her. It could jam signals for a short time. He carried the railgun and a solar charger. Before they left, Alira looked back at the shelter. "It was home," she said softly. Luke smiled. "We'll build another." The journey began. They moved carefully through the hills and broken valleys. They avoided open ground. They hid when flyers passed overhead. One night, they camped under a cliff. Alira looked at the stars and felt something strange. Not fear, not sadness. Hope. They reached the ruins of a human outpost. Rusted metal, broken walls, but a working scanner. Luke set it up. "There's movement nearby," he said, "but not Carthri." They waited. In the morning, a group of travelers appeared. 4 men, 2 women. Dirty clothes, tired eyes. One carried a child. They stopped when they saw Luke and Alira. "We don't want trouble," one man said. "Neither do we," Luke replied. "We're heading for the mountain base." "So are we," the man said. Alira stepped forward. "Then let's go together." The man looked at his group. He nodded. They moved as one now, 10 of them, walking through wild land, helping each other, sharing food, watching the skies. Alira taught the others how to spot Carthri signs. Luke trained them to use weapons. They became a team, and Alira felt something stronger than safety. She felt purpose. She had saved lives before, Now she would protect them, not just with warnings, with strength, with hope, with Luke at her side. Each day on the road brought new challenges. The path to the mountain base was long and rough. The group moved slowly. Some were weak from hunger, others had old wounds. Alira walked near the front, helping guide the way. Luke stayed close behind, watching their backs. On the fourth day, they came across the ruins of a Carthry scout camp. There were no bodies, only empty crates and broken tools. Luke searched the area and found signs of struggle. They left in a hurry, he said, or were taken. Alira looked at the burned marks on the ground. This was recent. They didn't stay long. That night, they made camp under a thick grove of trees. The child in the group, a girl named Lily, was frightened. She cried. Quietly, Alira sat beside her, telling her a simple story from her home world. The girl slowly fell asleep. The next morning, the wind changed. It carried a sharp scent. Smoke. Luke climbed a nearby ridge and used his scope. There's fire in the west, he said. Could be a battle or a signal. They voted to avoid it. The group turned north and took a longer path. It was harder, but safer. Along the way, Alira found an old stream and helped the others refill their water. She noticed how the group started listening to her more. When she gave advice, they followed it. When Luke gave orders, they obeyed. It was quiet trust. Later, that night, as they rested by a small fire, Luke handed her a piece of paper. It was part of an old map. Marked in red was a location close to the base. This might be an old bunker, he said. If we can get in, we'll have shelter for the final stretch. The group moved out at dawn. The hills turned steep. The sky darkened with clouds again. Alira felt uneasy. When they reached the bunker, they found the entrance buried under rubble. Luke and two others dug through until they found a steel door. It creaked open slowly. Inside, it was dark and cold. Lights flickered. Alira turned on her torch and stepped inside. The walls were lined with equipment, some broken, some still glowing. They found food rations and medical kits. Enough for a few more days. The group rested. Luke worked on powering up the main console. Alira explored deeper. She found a room with a sealed door. The panel beside it was blinking. She called Luke. This looks important, she said. Luke examined it. Could be a secure log. Might have data from the old Earth team. He connected a tool and waited. The screen lit up. Words appeared. Base signal active. Emergency beacon ready. Alira felt a rush of hope. Can we send a signal? Maybe. But once we do, anyone out there can track it. Carthry too. Alira thought. We wait. Reach the mountain first, then we send it. Luke nodded. They stayed in the bunker that night. It was the first warm sleep in days. Alira woke early. She walked outside and looked at the hills. The sun was just rising. Luke joined her. You all right? Yes, she said. But I keep thinking, what if help doesn't come? Luke looked at her. Then we survive, like we always do. She smiled. With you, I believe that. They moved again the next day. The mountain came into view. Snow capped the top. The base was near. Everyone walked faster, hope in their steps. But as they climbed a narrow trail, they heard a roar above a Carthry flyer. It hovered, then turned. A spotlight hit the group. Run, Luke shouted. They scattered. The flyer fired a blast into the ground. Dirt flew. Alira grabbed Lily and pulled her behind a rock. Luke fired at the flyer. It swerved, dodging his shots. Then Alira saw something. A missile pod on the hillside, buried but intact. She ran toward it. Luke saw her. "What are you doing? Trust me," she yelled. She reached the pod and ripped off the cover. She remembered the codes. Her training came back. She powered it up. The flyer turned toward her dot too late. The missile launched. It hit the flyer mid-air. The ship burst into flames and crashed. Into the trees, silence returned. Alira stood shaking. Luke ran to her. "You okay?" She nodded. "I remembered from training." He smiled. "You saved us." The others gathered. No one was hurt. The mountain base was now only a few miles away. They moved quickly. Before night fell, they reached the gate. It was tall and strong. Luke found the control panel. He entered a code. The gate opened. They walked inside. Alira looked around. Lights turned on. Machines hummed. This was a true shelter, a place to begin again. She looked at Luke. "We made it." He smiled. "Together." And for the first time in her life, Alira felt not just hope. She felt like she belonged.